All right. Well, we are live here on Monday night, April the 15th.
Hi.
I want to welcome you, Karen, to coming tonight and being one of the first speakers that we've had on Escape Social Anxiety.
Thank you, Ruth. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Oh, so glad you are here. I want to introduce my friend Karen. She's a licensed professional counselor. From the state of Virginia. Okay. Yes. Hi to everybody who's coming on. I see Amber.
Hi, Amber.
I see Steph. Joel. Yeah. So anyhow, I'm so glad you're here. Karen has been my friend for, Karen, how long do you think it's been? Like maybe 40 years?
30 plus years, 31 years, 32 almost. Yeah.
That's
a long time. We've worked together for years and have been friends for.
Okay, we are outdating ourselves, so I'll say
we sure
no
are. That's why I said 30.
Okay.
I left it at 30.
Let me just say I met Karen when I worked for the County of Loudoun. That was back in the day. And Karen, like I said, is a licensed professional counselor. She's a trained EMDR therapist, and she's a singer with a group called Riptide.
And Eye Candy. And the new band is called Eye Candy. Just saying.
Oh, and another group called Eye Candy. I don't know how you work full time and do that, but you're amazing. So,
the music.
One thing I know about you, Karen. Yeah. Yeah, one thing I know about you, Karen, is that you have been invested in helping people with foods and moods. And that's why we titled this.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Karen, tell us a little bit about how food affects mood.
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a lag. So are you hearing me in real time right now? Or is there a lag between the sound?
There is a lag, and nothing we can do about it right now.
Okay. Sorry, kitty cat ran by. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and just present the information. Yeah, I've been studying nutrition for a very long time and working with homeopathic MDs and learning about a lot of things related to human nutrition. And what I'm presenting tonight will be a compilation of different sources. But I'm going to call the title of this presentation Nutritional Psychiatry, which is food and mood, how foods impact our mental health and anxiety in particular, as well as depression. So basically, I'm just going to jump in. The brain relies on diet for continuous supply of nourishment, and diet can modify anxiety and depression. Some of what I tell you this evening will be a repeat of what you already know, and then I'll just present kind of as a baseline and then keep moving. Feel free to ask questions as we go. So as kind of a backdrop for nutrition, human nutrition and foods, we have macronutrients and we have micronutrients. And as everyone listening knows, we have carbohydrates as macronutrients, carbohydrates, protein, and fatty acids. And the brain relies on these food sources. And for under carbohydrates, it relies on carbs for glucose fuel, quick energy,
I
and it
want to hear
relies
more
about
about
40.
this.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm going to talk a lot about carbs and fatty
Okay.
acids more than protein, but the brain needs about 45 to 65% of its nourishment needs through carbohydrates. Protein, which is amino acids, which build muscles and basically carry out the functions of various organs, 10 to 35% for brain development. And then fatty acids, which are fats, and the healthy ones are omega-3 oils. They are anti-inflammatory. The brain needs about 20 to 35% of its functioning through or from that as a source, fatty acids. Micronutrients are vitamins and minerals, and the brain needs about 30 essential vitamins and minerals.
Okay.
So that's kind of a baseline for nutrition. And we're going to go into the American diet. Believe it or not, we call the American diet the standard American diet, which is an acronym for that, rather, is SAD, because our diet in general, I'm generalizing, but this is coming from the nutrition world. Our diet is sad. And
Ooh.
this is Emma to talk first about sad and about
Ooh.
the bad things that we do for ourselves as it relates to our mental health and well-being in general, and then shift over to the most highly recommended diet to help
Okay.
feed the brain properly. So the SAD diet, and you probably know this, but just again, some of this will be a repeat, some will
Okay.
be new for some of you. Anyway, the SAD diet is over processed foods. Foods we take as a baseline, we take flour, sugar, and oil, and look at how many of those products are over processed, meaning we bleach out and then we add nutrients back, like enriched flour. Naughty, 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 bad for the body.
Oh.
Over processed foods, including processed meats with nitrates and other chemicals, as well as, again, over processed oils, basically clog the system. People might get constipated. In the long run, what happens is there's a link to these foods, including fake sugars, including too much sugar, artificial ingredients, artificial coloring, artificial sugar, la la la. Don't eat the pink, blue, or yellow sugar packets, just my opinion. Anyway, what happens is the body gets kind of clogged, the system. And these types of foods, as a baseline, whatever you're cooking, if you're cooking with these foods as a baseline, what happens is there's inflammation in the body that forms. And inflammation in the body is a disease state. We say it's dis-ease in the body.
Oh.
And so, as it relates to being healthy, we try to eat, for example, an anti-inflammatory diet, which would be a more alkaline diet. And one of the books that I've referenced is Alkalize or Die. I don't like the title, but it's very, very important to look at alkalinity in the foods, and as it relates to mental health too, because when we have inflammation in the body, this impacts the brain biochemistry. So disease in the body as well as in the brain, including, again, serotonin levels, neurotransmitters, dopamine, melatonin for sleep. All of the neurotransmitters are impacted by a SAD diet. Here's an example of one research study that was put out by the American Heart Association. They were looking at how much sugar, just sugar in general. Frankly, let me say something real fast. You can eat these foods. The question is, which type of the foods? I don't know if that makes sense, but in other words, you can have sugar, but the question is, what's the source of the sugar? How is it processed? So, don't think that, oh, I can't have these foods. You can, but it's a question of making the right choices. The American Heart Association put out a research study, and they came up with this number that Americans and humans in general need for sugar intake no more than 9.5 teaspoons of sugar per day. And can you guess how much sugar on average adults and children in the US eat? Ruth?
Hmm.
I'll put it out there.
Wait a minute. You
I'll
said
just keep.
teaspoons?
Yeah,
You
how many
said teaspoons?
teaspoons do you think American adults eat per day? Teaspoons of
How,
sugar per day.
how, what do you think? I mean, how much do Americans take in?
Okay, this is the average is 22 teaspoons per day, even though we're supposed to not go over
Wow.
9.5 in terms of, again, good health. Now, another thing with sugar, and I could talk for hours, so tell me to stop going into details, but this is really important. Sugar, if we eat too much sugar, sugar is a stimulant, and what happens is the pancreas has to increase um, insulin to counteract the sugar, because our bodies are always looking for homeostasis. Children, in this study, they determined that children eat, adults have 22 teaspoons of sugar per day. Children, 32 teaspoons per day on average in the US. Yeah. So again,
Oh,
this equals inflammation in the body. Inflammation is a disease state. So the bottom line, as relates to anxiety and depression and mental health issues, is that when the body is
that's
feeling sick,
amazing.
isn't that incredible? Yeah.
That's
I
excessive.
was shocked. I was really shocked to see those numbers. But I'm not when you look at how many teaspoons of sugar are in a soda. I don't even know, but I think it's like 30 plus. I'm not
Mhm.
sure, but I think it's a lot. Someone in the group can tell us. So,
It
but
is.
is that it's something like that? I heard the number, but I can't quote it because I wasn't sure about the source. I didn't. I'm not going to quote it, but I know it's something like 26 to 36 teaspoons per drink of a Coca-Cola. And the question is, how big is a Coke? But yeah, you know what I mean. So inflammation in the body equals an increase, according to researchers, in anxiety and other mental health concerns. So
So
today,
you're saying that sugar creates inflammation?
yes, it's a stimulant, and it creates, when it's mixed with other foods that are, and sugars over processed, like white sugar,
Mhm.
it's kind of weird, but food manufacturers very often bleach out sugar, flour, mostly those two things, sugar and flour, so that they're white. And so we're not only getting less of what we're supposed to get from the good parts of the sugar and flour, but we're also getting chemicals. So the chemicals are like sludge in the body, and they impact the whole body as a system, not just the pancreas if it's sugar, but the bowels, the stomach and the gut, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. The gut brain axis. So it's very complicated. But here's what happens: not just diet. Diet, we need to really look at that and say, okay, how do we decrease inflammation? So diet is a major way, including not just diet with what I just said, but also caffeine, which I just said too, but alcohol.
Hmm.
Smoking is also another component in terms of inflammation in the body. So, what other things cause inflammation in the body? Stress is a big factor, lack of
Okay.
exercise. I mentioned smoking. Obesity is a big inflammation factor, as well as lack of sleep.
Okay.
So, those are just examples. So, one more thing to say about sugar, and then I'll move on. Sugar, like I said, is a stimulant. And so, what happens, if you've ever seen the stress curve related to time, the curve goes up, especially if you add caffeine with sugar, like a sugar sweetened
Okay.
drink. Anyway, the stress level goes high, 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 including productivity, by the way. So, it can be a benefit. It's not all bad. Either way, the stress curve goes straight up. And then at some level, precipitous drop straight down into energy, just stops because it kind of starves your body of nutrients. Sugar, according to
Okay.
researchers, grows tumors. Sugar diminishes the immune system. So we need to, I'm not saying you can't have sugar. I'm just saying we need to find the right source of sugar, and we need to have moderation. That's all around sugar. So the next thing to talk about is the diet that is recommended by researchers, medical researchers. And have you ever heard of the Mediterranean diet? Well, so this diet is basically, let me just kind of
Okay.
summarize the details of the Mediterranean, excuse
Okay.
me, based
Want to hear
diet,
it?
which will
Okay.
basically give health and wellness in the body and brain. So again, we're looking at neurotransmitters like serotonin, feel good. That's the mother of the brain chemicals. So
Okay.
if one shifts over to this diet, this is the most highly researched and the most highly recommended by MD um, doctors in the trenches as well as MD researchers, PhD, MD researchers. So anyway, here's the diet. Again, it's called the Mediterranean diet, and it's plant-based. This is a really critical piece, and it's whole foods. So that's why I was saying earlier about, hey, you can have these foods. It's just a question of the source of the food. So you want to choose whole foods and seeds and nuts. So in other words, we don't want overprocessed is the thing.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm really saying. Seeds and
Okay.
nuts and whole grains. So like you can have bread, that's a carb. You can have bread.
Mhm.
But the question is, or really the thing to do is to eat whole grain bread instead
Okay.
of a process. Like I hate to say it, but like Wonder Bread, the white bread that's all like bleached out. You can just see it when you put it in your mouth. You can taste that it's bleached out. And another thing is olive oil, and then also fatty fish. So that's sort of the Mediterranean diet in a nutshell.
Okay.
One, excuse me. One of the things we say in the nutrition world is, don't beat yourself up. Look, nobody does 100% of an alkaline diet or a Mediterranean diet. We say do 80%.
Okay.
80/20 is kind of a principle in the nutrition world. And we say, look, 80% healthy food, and you can cheat sometimes. Don't worry about it. And the thing about depression and anxiety
Oh, that's
is we
good to
beat
hear.
ourselves up when we get off our diet. And I don't like, or Garfield always said, diet is die with a T. And I think he's
Yeah.
exactly right. Because we're looking at a way of living and a way of eating that's healthy and feels good, and you
Okay.
feel it in your body and you feel it in your mind.
Yeah.
So again, if you go off the diet, I don't even want to call it diet, it's just a lifestyle. If you go off the healthy lifestyle when you eat, then don't beat yourself up, because that increases cortisol levels and adrenaline
Okay.
levels. That equals more
Yeah.
anxiety and depression. Just saying. And the same one thing I didn't say about sugar and caffeine, that's the same thing. There's an adrenaline piece that it's
Mhm.
such a high stimulant to mix the two that it
Okay.
increases cortisol, which is a stress chemical, adrenaline, and then people get more anxiety. Just saying.
So you're saying we don't have to be perfect, but we need to
Right,
strive for more of a Mediterranean diet.
right. Exactly. Yeah. And just try to think of it as whole foods.
Okay.
Think of it as whole foods, and so
Okay.
people always say whole foods like the store is whole paycheck. But in reality, you can go in there and you can buy the 365 label. You can shop the sales. I do that all the time. You don't have to spend a lot of money to be healthy and feel well, because that's the bottom
Good.
line that I always like to push is not just longevity in life, but health and wellness and feeling well today. That's what I push all the time. Keep in mind the things that I'm talking about today too. Each person listening today is an individual. You have your own individual physiology. Even like the foods list that I sent around, that may or may not work for you. Some of those foods, you may have food allergies. So just take it
Mhm.
as this is a generalized statement, but everything on this list that I'm giving you may not be for you. So, and we can talk about that. Again, send your questions to Ruth, and I'm happy to answer any of them. So anyway, so I want to introduce you. I'm going to shift the topic, and I want to introduce you to what this is so interesting, to what we call the gut-brain axis. And I wish I could see hands. I wish I could know if anyone in the group has heard of this, but I'm just going to jump in, and you can send
Let's
feedback
hear
if you
about it.
need, or if you. Well, here it
Okay.
is. Guess what? Fascinating data. Our guts have a brain.
Okay.
So we call it the gut to head communication system. It's a communication system between the gut and the brain. And we have to feed the gut, which is made up of trillions, I know it's a large number, trillions of microorganisms, including bacteria in the gut. They're called biomes, and these biomes need to be fed to communicate with the brain. So I'll tell
Wow.
you how to feed the biomes, but it's a brilliant system, a network of nerves, of neurons, and neurotransmitters that run through your GI tract. Mostly, when I say the gut, researchers really are referring to the large intestine. That's the biggest part of the gut that they're talking about. But we have this whole system of communication between the gut, the biomes, and the brain. So when the gut is fed healthy foods that relate to feeding the biomes, what happens is there's a reduced rate of anxiety and depression in the brain, because messages get sent to the brain, wellness messages. So anxiety is decreased. And it relates to, believe it or not, this is so interesting because healthy gut biomes produce neurotransmitters in the brain. We can be healthy, we can feel better if we feed those biomes. So neurotransmitters like GABA, which will help with relaxation and calming,
Yeah.
serotonin, the mother of the brain chemicals, energy, motivation, learning, feeling well. That's the mother of the brain chemicals that controls sleep, dopamine too. It's
Awesome.
very complicated, but if we feed the biomes, then we will be healthier. Our anxiety will reduce and we'll feel better as well. So it's basically gut to heal, and it goes back and forth. The brain feeds the gut as well. You know, when people have like IBS, or a lot of times, and Ruth and I both do EMDR, so we'll ask people, one of the parts of EMDR is, where do you feel it in your body when there's trauma? And the answer very often is in my stomach. They'll say my head, my heart, or my stomach. Very often it'll be the whole body. They can feel like tingling,
Here.
but either way, the brain field
Yeah.
basically feeds the gut, because the book The Body Keeps the Score talks all
Okay.
about this. Well, the same thing, the gut feeds the head.
Okay.
So it basically
Yeah.
increases
And we had a
production.
question. We have a question, Karen.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Yes.
What's the question?
Um, we have somebody who's asking, is this why our brain doesn't work right when we drink?
That's a good question. It is a chemical response, I think. Ruth, you're probably better trained as relates to alcohol and what it does to the brain. We always say it covers over our thoughts and feelings, but there's a biochemistry related to alcohol, what it does in
Right.
the brain. It's a depressant category. Ruth, can you answer that? Or yeah, it falls under depressant category, alcohol. So it covers over, yeah. Plus, different parts of the brain are impacted
Yeah.
depending on how much alcohol we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I can. Actually, alcohol is a depressant, but it has a fair amount of sugar in it. So while it's also hyping you up, it's also depressing, are impacted by alcohol. Yeah, yeah, they definitely are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to say about that, Ruth?
Um, I think with all of our sugars, we just need to be careful with what we drink because it all has sugar. So if we're
Good point.
watching the Mediterranean diet, then we want, yeah, no, I think we just need to be careful with what we're putting into our body, whether it's food or alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely. Or nicotine. Yeah, yeah. So, one last thing about the bugs to brain, the biomes in the stomach. Did you know that 70 to 80% of the body's immune cells are in the gut?
Right,
So we're
exactly.
feeding our immune cells, and that's the beginning. Eating alkaline foods, which are on that list, and I can point out some of them anyway, but also feeding the gut, with the right foods will increase
We've got,
immune cell production. And that means that you're healthier, and it means that you can fight off it. It increases protection. The immune system is there to protect. It's absolutely crucial for the development of the brain and the body. Yeah. So anyway, but I guess we talked about neurotransmitters of touch, but and one more fun fact is that serotonin and dopamine and the GABA too, are produced in the gut, but 90% of serotonin and dopamine are made from the gut to brain communication.
yeah,
So that's how critical it is. 90% of the mother, the brain chemicals, are made from that connection.
all right.
So
Well,
yeah. Anyway, so let me go over foods that you need to know about,
okay,
that
good,
feed.
good.
Yeah, this is really important. So yeah, what foods feed the gut brain axis?
Yes.
Two categories. One is probiotics,
Mm,
and the other is prebiotics. And you hear about this in the news all the time on YouTube channels, people talking about probiotics and prebiotics. So probiotics are basically fermented foods and also foods with live microorganisms. So, like yogurt with live cultures,
Yeah.
sauerkraut, kimchi, foods like that. Prebiotics are foods that promote bacteria growth in the gut. So, some sources for prebiotics are onions, garlic. So, basically, the bacteria in your stomach needs onions, needs garlic, artichokes, leeks, asparagus, beans to break down. It's basically feeding those microorganisms so that they send health and healing messages to your brains. So,
Okay.
so berries, apples, lentils, whole grains. So it's again the Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
It's
Excellent.
yeah. So let's see. Other ways to support the process in
Ooh,
general. So I'm going
we
to
want
just
to hear
summarize.
it.
Plant-based foods. It's kind of like a reiteration of what I was saying. So plant-based foods and diversity is
Yeah.
very important. So doctors will always tell you that you want to have a lot of colors on your plate. Very critical. The plant-based foods. It's more like veggies and fruits. Colors. That's very important. Whole grains, omega 3s. So the oil that's usually
Okay.
recommended is extra virgin olive oil. Now, some doctors, the one that I worked with, who's again a homeopathic MD, he always said extra virgin olive oil. It's hard to find that. So, I was happy with extra virgin, but you can get that in a supplement as well, the omega 3s. And it's basically fatty fish oil, which is not only good for what we're talking about, but also heart healthy for you as well. Because
Okay.
these oils basically, it's a quick thing, they basically stimulate, the omega 3 stimulate the brown fat, burning
And I
fat.
understand that cold pressed is the best olive oil.
Absolutely. Yeah, your oils should always be cold pressed. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a chemical reaction when oils get processed in heat, and there's some very negative chemicals that are a byproduct of that, which actually are linked to cancer, believe it or not. So,
Well, Karen, this
what
is
else?
wonderful information. It's just the best. I think, yeah.
A few more things, just briefly. Whole
Okay.
fish. Always check we have all these things going on in our environment with like mercury in fish. So always check the size of the fish. The larger the fish, the more mercury. So you don't want the larger fish. But the ones that are recommended by experts are salmon, sardines, mackerel, herring, trout, and then fresh tuna. Those are the lower um, mercury fish. So, and also science people that I know and talk to pretty much weekly, they always say don't eat more than one tuna fish sandwich per week, to be honest, because of the mercury. And these are people who are working in the Everglades and places like that where there's methyl mercury issues and that kind of thing. Also, one thing, this is from a class that I took in nutritional psychiatry. The professor said that Kirkland, I was shocked, Costco, Kirkland
Yeah.
multivitamins are the best vitamins you can buy, according to independent researchers. And in general, so again, we're looking at plant-based foods, whole grains, whole foods, omega oils, fish,
Okay.
vitamins, and the other, not just multi, but vitamin A, the B vitamins for stress. So we're looking at immune functioning, how to support immune functioning, vitamin A, vitamin B12 in general. And again, this helps with anxiety and depression. Vitamin C
Okay.
for your immune functioning, and vitamin D. So those are the main things. And then one more thing, the professor from the nutritional psychiatry class was pretty funny. She said, don't stuff your face your stuff, which I thought was kind of funny. But the bottom line is factors that impact and that we need to have in check would be chronic stress, because again, that increase in adrenaline, increase in cortisol, which will lower
Okay.
serotonin and make people anxious and depressed. So we need to have our stress in control. And then obesity is a link too. Obesity is a link to inflammation, of course, and anxiety and depression. So maybe work with a nutritionist if that's an issue. The other thing is our response to stress is really
Okay.
from the inside. There are external stressors, and our internal response will impact our physiology. And then there are things that we all know, like exercise, not just diet, but exercise, meditation, prayer, nature in general. These are ways in which to
Yeah.
increase serotonin. This is in the book Alkalize or Die, that we can actually switch our bodies through meditation into an
And then we're going
excellent.
to have a flyer ready for everybody who wants these tips from tonight.
Sure. Yeah. Sure thing. Yeah. Plus hydration and sleep too. Sleep critical. Yeah.
Well, Karen, I'm
Hydration.
going to take a moment here and just ask if anybody has any questions.
Sure
What
thing.
speakers do you have?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see if anybody has any other questions. Yes, I agree.
What interesting, right? Well, that's probably the statement, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's
Entirely too much? What's too much?
I think people were commenting on. Oh, Klaus asked, "What are the daily supplements you recommend?"
Okay, so the daily would be the vitamin A, the vitamin B12 for stress, and the vitamin D as well. It's D3 and K2. K2 helps with absorption, but D3. And then the multi, yeah. Also the omega oils, that's something that everybody needs to take. You can get those, and the new research is omega 3s. It used to be 3, 6, and 9. Now it's the omega 3s that are
Okay.
highly
That's
touted. Yeah.
Okay. Karen, this has been wonderful.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was new information for people. Very welcome. I see your message. Thank you. You're very welcome.
What I would like is for you to come back in the near future, and you started talking about. Yeah, this was wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay.
You're very welcome.
And I want to remind everybody that who's watching that if you deal with people who can watch these videos or ones that are actual members of Escape Social Anxiety. So if you have anybody who want to tune in for this, please turn them on to ESA. Okay. Karen, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I'll say good night to everybody.
Okay, good night. Okay, thanks.
Good night.
Bye.